up, YouTube? Today we are up here in Wisconsin and we're going to be going over color grading. But first, if you guys are new here, my name is Sam Aldrich, aka Sam the Cameraman, and each and every week I come out with new DaVinci Resolve tutorials, new tips, tricks, workflows, some cool gear reviews. So make sure you guys are subscribing, hitting that bell notification, like this video because why not? Makes me happy, makes you guys happy, makes everybody happy. So hit that like, share it with your friends who edit video. But anyways, freaking bugs up here are crazy. Get out of here. But anyways, we're not wasting any more time. We're gonna get right into this DaVinci Resolve tutorial. I'm gonna show you guys how I color grade all of my footage, and it's an easy way to do it. You can just one click of a button, share that grade to each and every clip within your DaVinci Resolve timeline. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get after it. Rah. Alright guys, now that we are back here again in DaVinci Resolve, we are going to go over my complete color grading process. I'm going to show you guys how I color each clip and how I transfer that color grade to other clips within my timeline. And that is why I have two different clips here, but I also cut them and split them up so I can show you how I transfer this grade over to each individual clip. So that once you get your clips in your timeline like you have here, once you get all your editing done and all that, I always recommend coloring last, right ahead of doing audio. That's how I always do my workflows. I do all my edits, I do coloring, and then I do all my audio work in the Fairlight tab. If you guys want to see how I tweak my audio in Fairlight, let me know down in the comments below. But let's get right into color grading. So you want to come down here, hit the color tab, and then once we are in our color window here, you can see we have all these different color wheels. We got all this stuff down here, and it can seem a bit overwhelming, but I'm going to show you how to keep it simple and get some really cool looking colors and looks out of DaVinci Resolve here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to come up here, make sure you can see your node graph here. If you don't, make sure you just hit nodes on the top right, and if you want you can select clips, but as you can see that narrow, it makes it the viewer smaller. So what we want to do is take the clips off and we'll leave just the node window and the viewer window up. So what you want to do first is you want to hit Alt S like 4 or 5 times, and each node is going to have a different effect on it. And the reason I make all these different nodes with all these different effects is because then when I transfer this grade onto another clip, I know what each effect is and I can go back and tweak as needed. So for me, I have a shortcut on my keyboard to R for renaming these. This will be your exposure, and if you don't have that shortcut, you can just right click on them and then you come down to node label and you can just label whatever you want. I always do color / balance. Come over here, we're gonna go rename this one to look, and this is going to be overall adjustment. This will be sharpening, and this one will be vignette. Alright, so now that we have all of these labeled and ready to go, we are ready to start making changes to this clip. Now, what you want to do is you want to sift through your clip and find what you would call your hero shot or your hero frame, or just the best looking frame from that clip. I'm happy with this one right here, and we're going to start with our primary wheels. So right now I have the color wheels, which is the third dot here selected. We want to go to the first one, and these are going to be our primary wheels. You always want to start with your primaries, and that's how you want to control your exposure. So we want to make sure our exposure node is selected, and we're going to start by adding contrast. So I'm going to bring up the contrast. As you can see, it darkens the image. I'm going to bring it to about 1.264. I'm happy with that. I'm going to bring down the gain. Gain is going to be like the lighter part of your clip. I'm going to bring down my gamma just a little bit. I'm going to bring down my lift. Everything's coming down. I want this to be dark, and I really want it to be scary looking because this was a part of the horror video that I released, and I'll put a link to that in the description if you want to see that. I'm pretty happy with that, but and there's an awesome tool in DaVinci Resolve, and it's called your scopes. Now we want to bring those up so we can see where this image is sitting. So if you right click on your viewer window and you come down and you go to the very bottom and you see where it says show scopes, click that. And now we got your parade, your waveform, your vector scope, and your histogram. We're just going to park that right there for now, kind of keep it out of the way. But as we can see, everything's sitting pretty on the dark darkened and the highlights are just way up, but we're pretty much white balanced. We maybe have a little too much red in there, but we can control that once we get to color and balance. So now that I have my exposure set the way I want it, I'm going to come over to my color and balance node right here, and we're going to start tweaking the saturation. Now I always recommend pump it all the way to 100 and then bring it back, because you can see where you want it, but I know I want this more desaturated. So we're going to put that at about 34, and that right there pretty much white balances this out completely. I don't really need to make many adjustments there. Maybe I'll come to the gamma, because I can still see a little bit of red, and I can see a little bit of red is a little higher than everything else. So we'll just come and push that towards the blue just ever so slightly, and there we go. That is perfect. Now if you want to see the before and afters of these effects, you can hit Control D with your node selected, and it's going to deselect it so you can see what it was before. Now hit Control D again, after. So if we do highlight both of these, Control D, Control D. So already we're getting really close. We're getting to where we want to go, but this look node right here, this is where the bread and butter is. This is where we're going to create the blue tint to it, the almost ring looking scariness that you would see in that movie The Ring. So first thing we want to do is we're going to bring our scopes up, and we want to come to our curves tab. With our curves tab selected, we're going to come to the third one in, and that's going to be hue versus saturation. We want to select our reds and our yellows. So we want to bring those yellows down. We want to take out some of that tint in our face, and we're going to bring that red down just a little bit. We don't want to take all of it out, but we want to take a little bit. That's going to give you a little bit of that fleshy color, but not too much, because watch what we're going to do now. This is where it gets cool. We're going to come over here to our primary wheels. We're going to come to the gamma, and we're just going to ever so slightly drag it towards like a teal and a green, and just watch how it changes, just like that. Now, as you saw, I barely moved it. With the primary wheels, you don't need to make huge adjustments to get different looks. Now when you go to your highlight and your midtones and your shadows in here, now this you can adjust and you can move them a lot and you won't see much of a change. But for me right now, using the gamma gave me the look exactly how I want it. Now we're going to come over to our color wheels, and we're going to take our shadows right down here on this wheel, and we're going to just drop them, bring them down. As you can see, that looks too much, so we're going to bring them back up just a little bit to about right there. Now that we tweaked our shadows, it's still a little too dark, but we can control the low range and what that adjustment affects. If you come right down here to LR, you're going to drop this down, and this will allow you to fine-tune what the shadows actually adjust. Like this is going to adjust the low range right here, so we're only going to bring it up to about right there. We just want it to barely adjust it. All right, and right there I'm pretty happy with the way this looks. I might go down in the shadows here and add just a little bit more tealish green, and in the mid-tones I'm going to add some of the same. And I might bring down, if we move this back up, I'm going to bring down these reds again too, and the yellows. All right, now if we go Control D, that's before, that's after. Now I am absolutely loving this, but I'm noticing I'm getting too much blue in my shadows, so I'm going to just double click it, and that's just going to put that right back. And now to me that looks much better. If we go Control D, I'm super happy with that. This is like my overall adjustment. Like if I needed to make any changes post edit after like the client saw the video, or after I look at this and I might say, oh, I need a little bit more, you know, skin tones adjusted or shadows adjusted. But here I'm very happy with how this looks. We're going to come over to sharpening, and this is where some magic also happens. If you come over here to this like little triangle and raindrop, it's going to bring you up to here. We want to drop down menu, hit sharpen, and this right here, your radius, is what's going to control your sharpening. So usually we're just going to scroll down, you know, 1 or 2, maybe 3 clicks. And if we scroll in on this and we pull our our scopes down and we hit Control D, it's not going to add a lot, but it adds just a little bit. Now if we cranked it way up, As you can see, that would add a ton of grain and everything else. We don't want that. We just want to add, go down to about 47 on this, since it's all, like, going to be scary, and we want a little bit more detail, maybe 47 right there. And I'm super happy with that. We can add a little bit of a vignette. If you come over and hit our vignette node, we're going to hit this little circle with the dots on it, and this brings up your window tab. And all we got to do to add a vignette is hit this little circle right there. It creates a circle window, but you just drag it on out, drag it on up, so it covers up your whole entire clip. Now just pull this out. This is your feathering. Don't be afraid to crank that. Crank it all the way up. Once that is done, come back to your curves. We're going to come to our first tab right here, and we're just going to pull down on the center. And as you can see, it is adjusting the center of it. We do not want that, so we're going to come back to our window tab, and you're going to hit this little box with the circle in it. It's going to be invert. And just like that, we've created a vignette. And that is going to be all I do for this clip right here. That I'm happy with it. Now I could take this whole entire node tree right here and bring it into another clip that I want to look similar to this, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that right now. What we're going to do is close out our scopes, come up to here and hit clips, and as you can see right here, I have this clip that isn't color graded at all, but the first clip is. So all you got to do is make sure you're on the clip that isn't graded, take your mouse, the cursor, hover over the clip that is graded, and hit the mouse wheel in. And just like that, that whole entire node tree is transferred over, and that clip is now graded. Now, if this was a completely different scene and some things needed to be adjusted, I could do so. All I would have to do is come into the exposure, and you could adjust as needed. Same with your color and balance, your look, overall. And that is, anything you need to do, you already know with these nodes where it's going to be broken down. And if you want to make a change, it's easily accessible, and you're not going to affect your whole entire clip, just that node. So that's why I always break it down into nodes like this. So that was one just kind of cool little look that I made. I'm going to show you guys how to get a really cool teal and orange look here on this clip of me talking. We're going to click on it so it comes up. We are going to take away the clips. Let's zoom in on that a little bit, just using the scroller wheel. We're going to right click, do show scopes, just so we can see everything's pretty exposed nicely. It's a little blown out in the highlights, but you know what? I was like vlogging here, so it's okay. Alright, so let's start with adding in our nodes. Click on the first node, and all you gotta do is hit Alt S, Alt S, Alt S, Alt S, Alt S. We're gonna rename them R for me, otherwise you can right click and do node label. This will be exposure. This one is going to be color/balance. This one is going to be look. This is going to be overall adjustments. This is going to be sharpen. And actually I'm going to show you something really cool on this one called mid-tone detail. When you are editing people, especially like if you're editing like models or people that want to look, clean, like, or in interviews, mid-tone detail is going to be a lifesaver. So I'm going to show you guys that. We're going to add one more and name that vignette. Perfect. So this is what our node structure is going to look like for this one. Nothing too crazy, just pretty simple. With our exposure tab node selected, we will come over to our primary wheels again, and let's start by adding saturation. I think we're going to park it right about 1.22. We're going to bring down our gain a ton. As you can see, we're getting some information back in those highlights, and we're going to bring down our lift, and we're going to bring down our gamma, maybe bring back our gain just a little bit. And as you can see, we're getting there. It seems super dark, but trust me, we're going to make this work, I promise you. So we're going to come to color and balance. I am going to actually bring saturation down just a little bit, because we don't need all that saturation, and it's going to help me color balance this just a little bit. And in the gamma, I can see we got some blues and some greens there, so we're going to try to take that out by adding a little bit of orange and red into that. Perfect. Alright, with our look node selected, this is where we are going to create the teal and orange look that everyone seems to love so much. First thing we're going to do is start by pumping in some highlight into here, bring that back. We're going to come over here, come to the gamma, bring that up. We're going to bring the gain down, bring our gamma up, bring our lift down. Maybe gamma up a little bit more, lift back down, maybe our gain down just a little bit, come back to our highlights, and what you're going to do is just kind of keep playing with it. Once you really figure out what these do and how they affect each clip you're working on, you kind of just have to play with it back and forth. But I always try to get my exposure so that my highlights and my shadows are well exposed and my midtones are decently exposed. And then once I get into my look, as you can see, this clip is starting to really brighten up and we're starting to bring some life back into it. I'm going to bring my gamma back up just a little bit, gain back down. And I think right there we're good for the exposure and the way I want it to look. Just for now, we might make some fine-tune adjustments, but let's just leave it there. So let's add some saturation into this bad boy. We're going to leave it right about there. That's 72. Pretty happy with that. We're going to move this up. Now, one thing I like to do in a lot of my clips is you're going to bring up the shadow, the dark points, and look at that. Look at the difference that I already had. Just like that. And we're going to add in another dot right here and just bring it down just a little bit. Doesn't need to be much. Same with our highlights. And just like that, I'm already happy with how this is looking. Let's just do Control D. Look at that. Already bringing some life back into this. I might bring some more gain back in. And let's pull down these highlights. And see how that adjusts. Perfect. We brought our shadows down just to kind of make our black points a little bit more crisp. Liking that a lot. Now what we're going to do is bring this up here to get it out of the way, and we're going to come over under our curves tab. This is where the teal and orange comes in. Now if I were to be shooting like on an ARRI Alexa or C200 or anything that's got like 10-bit or 12-bit color, I might do this differently. I might use the qualifier tab. I might use these primary wheels a little bit more, but because I'm shooting on a Sony with 8-bit color, you cannot stretch that image. You can't push that image as far. So what I'm going to do is I always use the hue versus hue. Keeps it simple and it adjusts pretty much everything you need to adjust. We're going to start with our blues. So with the hue versus hue selected, come down here, hit the blue, and we're just going to pull that straight up until it's a teal. And as you can see, this blue turned to teal just like that. Next thing we want to do, come to our yellows and do the same thing. Bring it up till it's orange. Might be a little too orange. I want to go right there. Now we got to do our greens. Same thing, come down, hit green, and bring that up. Because if you watch down here in the right corner, we're really going to turn that into orange. And just like that, we got a teal and orange look. That simple. It is that simple in DaVinci Resolve, guys. I'm telling you right now. This is the king of coloring. I love DaVinci, and if you're new to it, I promise you, if you color grade this way, you are going to love it as well. So now that we're done, I really don't need these scopes anymore. We're going to come to our overall adjustment. I don't really need to do much here. I might just bring my gamma up just a little bit more. Kind of expose my face just a tad bit more. Brighten it up. Now we'll go to Sharpen, and we're going to come back here to the triangle and little raindrop. Make sure our Sharpen is selected. Scroll down, 1, 2, leave it right. Maybe we'll do one more so I can show you guys what this mid-tone detail does. So make sure you select your mid-tone detail. We're going to scroll in right here on my face. Sorry that you guys have to see this. Anyways, what we're going to do is down here you can see contrast, pivot, saturation, hue, luma mix. What you want to do is you want to come down here and you're going to select 2, and that's going to bring up your tint, your temp, your tint, your MD, mid-tone detail, color boost, shadows, and highlights. What we want to do right here, I'm telling you guys right now, Let's take this mid-tone detail. If you just crank it all the way down, look how soft that gets. Now we don't want it to be that soft, you don't want to be at 100, but don't be afraid to crank this on certain people, because sometimes when you sharpen your clips and with these new digital cameras, the skin just looks so sharp and so like you see every imperfection. This is going to help you almost beautify your subjects, especially if you're doing interviews. This is a lifesaver. But we're going to just probably bring it down to, on this clip, probably like -18. We hit Control D. Just ever so slightly softens it, and that's all we need, and that is done. And now what we can do is come back to our vignette, click on our vignette, make sure, like I say, we select the window tab right here, select the circle window, bring it over and bring it down, feather the crap out of this thing, invert it right away this time, and we are going to come back to our curves tab and just drop it. And just like that, we got a nice little vignette. Makes us pop a little bit. I don't recommend using vignettes on every single clip that you do, but when I'm vlogging like this, my ND filter already naturally kind of vignettes me a little bit, especially if I do it real wide. So it just kind of adds to it a little bit, because if you go Command D, just adds a little bit of pop there, so that's not too bad. And the next thing I want to do is under this overall tab, I want to make one final adjustment, is under your soft clip here, if you can adjust your highs and your lows. See, if you drop it real low, it goes gray. This adjusts your highlights, how soft they become. I want to pull it all the way up, and that's just going to make our roll off, our highlight roll off, really, really nice. And you can do the same with your low end if you really wanted. As you can see, if you crank it all the way up, that's what happens. Crank it all the way down, but we're gonna just leave it where it was at 50, because I'm happy with that. And right there, I am extremely happy with this teal and orange look. Like I said, you can adjust the hue versus hue in any possible way that you wanted. It's an easy way to do it, especially with these Sonys and any camera footage that isn't like 10-bit or 12-bit or color. That way you're not like trying to bend this clip and stretch it too far. All right, and now to transfer this look to the next clip, we want to come up to our clips. Again, select the clip that is not color graded, and all you gotta do is hit that scroller wheel on the one that already is, and boom. Just like that, it is color graded. Now, this, like I said, this editing style for color can be done on every single type of video. I've used it on music videos, I use it on my short films, I use it on all these tutorials. Everything I do is done this way. So let me know what you guys think in comments below. And if you guys want to see some more cool looks on how I do different looks within DaVinci Resolve, let me know in the comments. And if you guys want any LUTs made, I can show you guys how to use LUTs. I can also make you guys some LUTs. So let me know if that's something y'all are interested in. But for now, guys, I'm going to catch you in the next one.